to the ABC Podcast.
Always be cool.
The show where your hosts, DC and BK, showcase your local business and real estate pros going gangbusters in leadership, community involvement, and just being cool.
Here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs, mortgage experts at Summit Lending, and partners in crime, Darren Copeland and Bobby Kerr.
All right, everybody, it's the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with your hosts, Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland. Today, we've got a really special individual, Mr. Vince Papale. Darren, go ahead and take it away with a quick bio.
All right, here we go. So born February 9th, 1946 from Glenolden, Pennsylvania, attended Interboro High School in Prospect Park, lettered in football, basketball, and track and field. In his only year of varsity football, Papale won All-Delaware County Honorable Mention. In track, he was a standout pole vaulter, triple jumper, and long jumper. Papale attended Philadelphia St. Joseph University on a track scholarship, as the university did not have a football team. As a junior, he won United States Track and Field Federation College pole vault at Madison Square Garden. It was in 1976, Bobby, that this 30-year-old teacher and coach at his high school alma mater, part-time bartender, and diehard Eagles fan decided to act on a whim and a dare and entered the unprecedented public tryouts for his beloved Eagles.
It's kind of a famous story.
Right. He played 3 seasons with the Eagles in the NFL, following 2 seasons with the Philadelphia Bell of the World Football League. He continues to hold the record for the oldest rookie in the NFL. Papale's amazing story was the inspiration behind the 2006 film Invincible. He resides in, from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, but now Jupiter, Florida, with a really awesome garage. Married to wife Janet, has 2 children, Gabriella and Vinny. Today, he electrifies audiences and is regarded as one of the top motivational speakers in the country. The ultimate underdog continues to thrill audiences with his energy and humor. Vince, so excited to have you here on our show. Welcome, and how are things going down there, man?
Oh, great, Darren. Thanks very much. Thanks, Bobby. It's a little warm like it is all over the country, but Dick Vermeil always had a great saying. Of course, my coach, Dick Vermeil. And by the way, we're very excited about him being inducted into the Pro Football. I might be indicted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right.
And, maybe for being a fraud, as they said I was a football player, but yeah, we're down here now, and it's pretty cool. And but we're still Philadelphians and Philadelphia Eagles at heart. Big Eagles fan. So it's been what a trip. It's been the wildest ride in the world since this movie came out.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we have a lot of connections, Vince. Between Philadelphia and Kansas City. Dick Vermeil eventually ended up being our coach here in Kansas City for a while, and then of course we've got the Andy Reid connection.
Mm-hmm.
So. Very, very cool. It seems like I was just recently on a flight, and I was flying down to Arizona and watching another underdog story, the one about Kurt Warner, and Dick Vermeil's in there too. So, Dick Vermeil, and we'll go a little bit back into your childhood, but since we're kind of there right now, but he must be one heck of a special guy.
Oh, he's fantastic. He gave me the opportunity, and how cool was that, Oh, by the way, the Ultimate Underdog was done by the same people who did Invincible.
Oh, okay.
By the same, and also by the same team that did Miracle, did Rookie, did The New Guy, did the Game Plan with The Rock, Dwayne. Yep. And so it's got quite a pedigree. But Vermeil, going back to Dick, being on both sides of the fort there. When the movie was coming out, Dick was in Kansas City, and Greg Kinnear, who played Dick in our movie, went down there for 3 days and spent time with them, and just had a great time. But to get that opportunity, but Coach Vermeil and I, and I'm telling you, we are so honored to go to the induction and the enshrinement. It's going to be in Canton starting on August 4th. So what we're doing is we're flying up to Philly on the first hangout there in our house that we have over by the Liberty Bell, and then we're going to drive across the state into Canton, Ohio. It's right on the other side of the border from Pennsylvania, and do that. And it's going to be great. It'll be interesting to see how many times Coach breaks up.
Right.
He's got he's got Carl Peterson. Hey, we have a Kansas City in too that's actually be a big part of our life, and that's Doug Peterson, I mean, he won. He got us. He went from Kansas City, and he went, of course, from Andy, and we all know Andy. And he comes over to Philly, wins the Super Bowl. He gets canned. Nobody can still figure that one out.
Right.
But he's regenerated and he's resurfaced now with the Jags. And we've known Doug since '99. Actually, my wife is his realtor since '99.
Wow.
So yeah. Our kids have grown up together, so there's so much going on.
Right.
We're going to go out and see the Jags play and see Doug. So, life is really
that's
good for us right now.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Well, real quick with Coach Vermeil, we'll probably touch base on him a couple more times today, but we've got Trent Green on the show next month lined up, and we ran it.
Oh, cool.
We talked with him last week, and again, just glowing reviews about Coach Vermeil. And so all these different people that have ties, whether it's Kurt Warner or you or Trent, just the world is a better place, it sounds like, because of Coach Vermeil. So I know we'll definitely.
That's definitely a better place when you drink his wine as well. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah. So they're having a big wine dinner right at the stadium area in Philadelphia on August 18th. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back and stay around the Jersey Shore and make sure we stay there for that dinner. But Coach he was a teacher. He's a father. He's a great husband. And the guy never asked us to do something that he would never do. And his first training camps were brutal. And he'll be the first to admit right now that he probably, because of all the new rules and regulations, especially with training camp, that he would have a very difficult time coaching. But thank God we had him, and I know anybody that's played under him, that survived him, will look back and say what a great positive experience and an honor to have played under Coach Dick Vermeil.
That's fantastic. So Vince, you're saying that in order for us to get Coach Vermeil on the show, we probably need to buy a couple of cases of his wine. Would that be a good start?
I think I might have a little in for you. We'll go there.
All right.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, right there. I'm looking at a couple of them. Yeah, he's got a couple with some really beautiful blends, and he's from Calistoga. That's where he was born and played high school quarterback. Yeah, just great story. And his father was a mechanic. My dad was a mechanic. We had so many. He was a teacher. I was a teacher. And when we sort of found out about each other a couple of 3 weeks into training camp, there was that bond that was inseparable.
Right.
And he was really rooting. He was busting me pretty hard, but he was really rooting for me to make the team. And he's the guy that basically made the decision. And here we are, invincibly later. Yeah. So it's pretty fun.
So Vince, what is it about Coach Vermeil? Because it seems like he just has a soft spot for the hard worker, the underdog, if you will. Between your amazing story and Kurt Warner, what was it about Vermeil that did he just have something in him that he was just looking for the heart and the work ethic in everyone that was out there, regardless of maybe what their talent was on the outside?
Yeah, because it was his upbringing, and his humble upbringings, and his father being a mechanic and his mother, being a mom, what moms were back in the 30s and 40s, and he's of Italian descent. His mother was Italian. His father is French. And his father, by the way, also was a race car driver, had open wheel cars. So that was pretty cool. But Dick's background is so similar to mine because my mom, my father, my grandfather was an immigrant from Naples back in the day, and I'm half English and half Italian, but I'm from immigrant families. And we had that kind of a background and very humble backgrounds. And I think the great thing about Coach Vermeil in so many different ways, first of all, was his passion. Not only his passion for the game, but his passion for life and so many things around him. He's the ultimate Renaissance man. When it comes to gardening or wine or hunting or fishing, whatever it is, coaching, there's nothing. And it's really amazing. Dick, now he's in his 80s and he's still reading and he's still studying and he's looking for other messages and other things because as we know, the world's just constantly changing and how you can express yourself and what you can do. And Coach is always trying to stay on top of things. But I think more than anything, Darren, it was just his love and respect and passion that he had for the game and also those around him. And he always said, when I first made the team, now all of a sudden I'm being asked to do all these speeches. And I said, tell me what to do, how to go about doing this. I went to him and he said, Vince, he said, meet everybody you treat everybody you meet as if they're the most important person you've ever met in your life. And if we could have that kind of kindness right now,
oh, wow,
it'd be a whole different world. Life should be a locker room. I mean, you guys, you've been around them, and we look at there's nothing other than one thing, and that's always one. And that one, it's to get to the goal line is to win the game. So if we treated life like a locker room and had Dick Vermeil as our leader, the world would be a much better. I vote for Dick Vermeil for president any day.
Oh, absolutely. And you nailed it on the head, Vince. I mean, like our whole concept of doing this podcast, and you probably can see our logo. So our motto is ABC, which is just always be cool. And that was our goal. Exactly what you described is always be cool to everyone that you meet. Being kind and generous is free. And I agree. It seems like Coach Vermeil just is like the epitome, he is just like the definition of always be cool. And having him as a leader of the country probably wouldn't be a bad idea. But you're right. Being in a locker room, if everyone could treat that and be on the same page, man, the world would be a much better place. So we love to hear.
Absolutely. Yep.
So real quick, let's go back kind of the beginning of your story. So growing up in Philadelphia, I mean, we all know the rabid fan bases that are Philadelphia sports fans. Philly's just a little bit of a different breed. So kind of what was it like growing up, not only a sports fan, but a young athlete, a person growing up in that hard-nosed, blue-collar kind of world that a lot of places aren't like? It's certainly on an island of its own in terms of, sports rabid fan bases. So maybe just talk a little bit about growing up in that area of the country.
Well, I grew up south of Philadelphia. I didn't grow up in Philadelphia per se. So as Darren said in the introduction, I was born in Glenolden, Pennsylvania. So if you know Philly, Interstate 95 runs right next to the Delaware River, which separates us from New Jersey and from the rest of the East Coast. But we lived right off that interstate. There was no interstate then, and I grew up in this small town, and I eventually became a school teacher at my alma mater. And my father's father came over from Italy in 1914, went to Ellis Island, and he wound up becoming a pig farmer. Right by the Philadelphia International Airport. It was all farmland back then, back in the day. And my mom, and my mom and dad never got beyond the 8th grade. My mom was a great athlete. They were both one of 9. But with World War II, the Great Depression, they had to support the family, and education wasn't the key. Survival was the key back then. So this is sort of the background I have. And, but I'm so grateful for it, and I'll never forget it. And in the movie, they portray this Max's Bar. It really exists. It's still there. It's in the neighborhood. The neighborhood has not changed one bit. It's still those old, beautiful homes that were built back in the early 1990s. And it was just, 1900s. And it's just spectacular. I come from the best background ever. And I think given the fundamentals but it was school teachers and coaches are the ones that really had a great impact on me. I was a little kid. My mom suffered a nervous breakdown. She suffered from anxiety and depression. She was in and out of mental hospitals when I'm 13, 14, 15 years old. So it were the coaches and teachers. My dad working at Westinghouse, and he's just trying to survive, keep everything together in our family. The teachers and coaches were those that guided me, and they were my role models in so many instances. And that's why when I graduated from St. Joe's, I went back and I wound up teaching at my alma mater, becoming the head track coach and assistant football coach, and working along with that one coach, George Corner, my high school football and track coach, that really had a great influence on me. And not knowing, and he told me that his mother had experienced some of the same things my mom had. And you can imagine, it was like back in the 50s and 60s, and word gets out that, my mom wasn't quite as strong mentally as everybody else. And you had to have a pretty thick skin because of the things that they were saying about. I got into a couple tussles because of some of the things that were said about my background and my father and my mother. But hey, it just made me tougher. And, I guess it was a precursor for being a special teamer, because every time out there, you got to battle your ass off.
Right. Exactly. Well, and that was one of the questions that we had here for events is, looking back from your childhood, where did some of that fire, where did some of that spirit come from? And it sounds like, you as as a child growing up, and we've heard this from other professional athletes that we've spoken to. It sounds like, in that day and age, and kids are mean, right? Kids will pick anything, to razz other people. So it sounds like you got some of your fire from, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And my mother my mother actually played professional baseball prior to World War II. She was a shortstop. Her name was Almira. They used to call her Big Al. Yeah. And she traveled up and down the East Coast. And it was sort of like barnstorming. And it was really cool. And my dad was a semi-pro football, semi-pro baseball player. And, so I got I got the genes from them, from two great athletes. But more than anything, I think the work, the ethic, the respect, the humility, and everything else came from my father and mother. And also they're Mount Rushmore, I put them way up there. And then, of course, Coach George Corner, and so many teachers, I could just list them right now that made an impact on my life. But, and then pops in another school teacher, another freaking coach, right? Yep. And it's our guy, Dick Vermeil. I mean, there's a path, and if you believe, yes. Somehow somebody's guiding and controlling those strings. And I believe in that definitely. And there's no question that Dick Vermeil hit it off at me and hit it off really, really well.
Well, I think no matter the age that you are, having people to look up to, having leaders that you can aspire to be like is really important, right? So you just mentioned 6 or 7 people in your entire life that are on the Mount Rushmore of your leaders that you followed, that you really looked up to, whether it's mom, dad, Coach Vermeil, your high school coach, Coach Corner. I think it's interesting that even at 30 years old, it's safe to say that Coach Vermeil became kind of a role model for you to aspire to be like. And I'll say this to back up when you're talking about teachers. I think, number one, so I'm a former middle school teacher also of 5 years. I think you taught about 5 years as well.
I got 6 years in, yeah.
And Darren's wife, Liz, she taught middle school for 15 years. And so my sister is a high school or an elementary school principal. We've got education running through our blood. Your mom was a teacher for 30 years, yeah. Right? So mentioning those teachers that whether you're a football coach and you're teaching, or whether you're teaching middle school or high school, and you're laying it all on the line to make sure that other people succeed and you have that servant leadership attitude is just so important. So thank you for mentioning even those teachers in your life that made a great impact. Yeah.
Oh, they're so very important. And right now, there's questions about what's going on and what the role of the teacher is, and back in our day, our role was to teach, was to instruct, to go through the fundamentals of life. So, and I have just so much respect and passion for them. And, the thing is that this is interesting. A lot of people don't know is that while I was teaching and coaching, I was also trying to qualify for the Olympic trials in the decathlon and playing in all these rough touch leagues. Mm-hmm. But I was working on my master's degree in counseling because as a young guy coming in 22, 23, Vietnam was starting to be in its heyday. A lot of kids were, there were breakups, single families, a lot of kids now getting into pot. That was starting to hit really big, the age of the 60s and the 70s. And they are coming to me for advice, this young guy, right? I didn't know crap. Mm-hmm. So I started working on my master's degree just to be able to make sure that I didn't mess anybody's head up because they were all coming to me looking for me to be the same mentor to them that Coach George Corner and so many others were to me. And that was all going on at that time. It was a trifecta in my life. And, and then I got the opportunity a lifetime in 76 in April. And Coach decided he was going to have that tryout. But teachers right now can have such an impact on people's and young people's and children's lives. And to me, the master teachers are the ones, the first, second, third, fourth grade teachers that really can develop the mores and the values of a lot of these kids right now. We hope and pray that, we keep that responsibility intact.
Well, exactly.
I'll just leave it at that.
Well, and the thing is, look at the three of us sitting here talking right now. I mean, we can rattle off our teachers, back in elementary school and junior high. I mean, these people just have such a huge impact in our lives. And I remember looking at my teachers back in the day going, man, these guys are really old. Right? At the time, they're not old at all, right?
Well, I was coming out 22, and I'm teaching 17 and 18 years old, and And, and then there's another coach in my life, and I'd be remiss in not mentioning him. That's Coach Marty Stern, who wound up coaching track at Villanova down in Tennessee. And Marty taught me how to run. And, the first thing I asked Coach Ramil, I said, what's the first thing you saw when you saw me? So I said, your speed.
Yeah.
I never seen anything like it. And that got me to that next drill. And then it was basically the same as me playing in these rough touch games against guys that would warm up with a 6-pack of Bud.
Right.
So
exactly.
It was good times. Yeah, it was fun.
Well, and it wasn't that kind of the mantra as your sports career, high school, college. You were always fast. And maybe they said, you didn't have the size to be in the NFL and all that, but you always had the speed. So tell us a little bit about 1976, because like in today's current environment, the thought of a pro football franchise opening up a public tryout for everyone is unheard of, right? So tell us about that bet, that kind of, and that whole story of how that started and how that open tryout came to be about with the Eagles.
Well, it came about. It came to me. I was when my track thing didn't get to where I wanted to get to. I was always in these rough touch leagues, and I played for 4 or 5 teams. Every bar and there, I would play for a beer. And there's this one great movie book out there by John Grisham. If you ever get this book, Playing for Pizza, you got to get that book by John Grisham, because it is so much like what I was going through at this guy's age, and that was pretty cool. But the decathlon thing didn't happen, and that's why all the guys that I was playing in the rough touch. Look, I'm running the 9.6, 9.7 100-yard dash. I raced Billy White Shoes Johnson in a 100-yard dash, and he beat me by about this much.
Wow!
So that's the kind of speed that I had back then. And so, in these rough touch, I'm just blowing by these guys, and they all were riding me. So if you had any guts, you'd play the Aston Knights in the semi-pro league. Well, I'm still doing that decathlon thing. And then once that ended, I said, what the heck, let me just take a shot at it. Well, thank God I did, because that was that was sort of the precursor, the first rung in that ladder that eventually got me up to the NFL. And I wound up not only leading the team, I led the whole league and touchdowns and receptions for wide receivers. And so that then gave me the confidence I could play. But there was another league that was coming out in 1974, 1975. It's called the World Football League.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, and Paul Warfield from the Miami Dolphins all defected, right? They all defected over to the Memphis Southmen. And guess what? They had a free agent tryout, and there were 800 guys there. And there were 70 wide receivers, and you're looking at that one guy that was left. And Dennis Lozzie, out of 800, 2 of us wound up making the team after 3 or 4 tryouts. Wow. And I actually got a chance to play in the World Football League for a year and a half, and then it folded. And then so that's where they pick up the movie, after the league had folded. Mm-hmm. And now I'm ready to go back and get my teaching job. Well, guess what? It's not available. They're telling me that we'll put you on a leave of absence and you can have your job back. So I thought I was just gonna be a substitute teaching and bartending for the rest of the year until the next fall, and then I'd get my teaching job. And then word comes out that I'm going to get this tryout. So there's this guy, Rich Iannarella, who was from our neighborhood. He's a Delco or Delaware County guy. And he knows the general manager of the Eagles, and that's Jimmy Murray. And he goes, I'm the agent. I'm the agent for this guy, Vince Papale. He says, yeah, I know who Vince is. He's a track guy. Well, he don't play football. And I was pretty well renowned in the Philly area for track and field. Make the long story short, he puts me on a list. Vermeil doesn't know anything about anything. Coach Vermeil, I should say. I don't want to be disrespectful. So Coach Vermeil didn't know anything about anything. And when we had that tryout, here I am now, a 10-year season ticket holder for the Philadelphia Eagles, having an opportunity to play for my Eagles. And when I walked in the locker room, and they allowed us to go into the locker room and dress, those were on the list. But again, Dick Vermeil doesn't know anything about a list. And those were on the list. And so I got a chance, and I'm looking around the locker, and there's Carmichael's, and there's Bergey's, and there's Roman Gabriel. All these guys are like my idols. And I was like starstruck. And then when I got to the field, the tryout where they used to have the Army-Navy game, and it was a 100,000 seat stadium, they put us all in the 40, and I popped the first four. I popped the 40 in grass in 4.5.
Wow.
And they just sort of looked at it, and it's okay. Well, let's put this guy in another drill, just like in the movie. See what he's got. And here we were just doing 7-on-7. We weren't even going 1-on-1, 7-on-7. And they just liked what they saw. And guys were trying to take my head off, but it was just like I saying, it was like those rough touch leagues I played in every Thursday night under the lights. So then here's the key. I get invited to after that tryout, and we had that conversation, about how old are you, this, that, and the other thing. We actually had that conversation in the locker room. I mean, in the elevator going down to the locker room after the tryout, and Coach Ramil just says, "Hey, maybe I'll see you later." And I didn't know anything. I didn't think anything of it. 15 minutes later, the trainer comes over and said, "They want to see you upstairs. Jimmy Murray, Mr. Murray wants to see you, the GM." And what's this about, And when I went past Coach Ramil's office, "Hey, Vinny, that was a great workout. You look good out there today." Whoo! And, yeah, let's go, baby. I walk into Jimmy's, and God bless Jimmy Murray, and I walk into his office, and I got offered $21,000. Oh, let me think about it. Okay.
We're talking about the culmination of your dreams, right? Like, you're a season ticket holder. You go to those games, you're screaming your head off, and you go in the locker room, you look at the jerseys, you're playing next to these guys. I've heard you speak before about the power of visualization, right? And just absolutely seeing, quote unquote, seeing yourself succeed. So maybe speak a little bit about what got you from, being a bartender and a substitute teacher to visualizing that successful tryout, to visualizing yourself going through the tunnel, to be on the field for the first time where you watched your team. I mean, I can't even imagine playing beside, my idols, right, growing up for the Miami Dolphins, right? Or you for the Kansas City Chiefs. So maybe just speak a little bit about the power of visualization and truly seeing your success come true.
Well, that's a good question, Bobby. I don't know if I can get to ask that. The visualization thing started in track and field. If you're a pole vaulter, and when I was coming out, I was only a foot and a half off the world's record coming out of high school.
I heard that.
14.6, and I never pole vaulted before. I used to pole vault across the creek in the housing project I grew up in, with a bamboo pole. And we have a bamboo tree right behind us, and I hear those things all the time. It just makes me think of when I was 12 years old doing that same thing. Mm-hmm. But, the vision part of it, being in the pole vault, there's like 32 movements. And so, before every vault, you would visualize that. I was doing the triple jump. You visualize, so that's a big part of it. My wife, Janet, you can see over the shoulder right there, her USA jersey. I'll show the fans that. But my wife, Janet, was on the USA World Gymnastics team. And she was also a coach at the University of Pennsylvania. And visualization and biofeedback, which she was one of the first ever to do this back in the late 60s, early 70s. Can you imagine, going on a balance beam, a 4-inch beam, and doing all the stuff they do? Well, she would have her girls do it on the ground, just close your eyes, visualize yourself. So visualization is so important in anything you're going to do. When I get up and give a speech, the first thing I'll do is I'll always take an hour off. I'll take an hour nap if I have time to do it and settle down. And the last thing I'll think about before I fall out is, what am I going to do for the first 2 or 3 minutes on that speech? And It's the same thing, like Denny Franks and me, my teammate, the white knuckle guy, the center, number 53. Dennis and I, the night before, and we were roommates, and the night before every game, we would visualize what we were going to do on that first kickoff coverage or that first kickoff return, because we were both in that. And what you have to do, it's really a perfect lead-in, and I'm not trying to sell this book, but, but Dennis and I wrote this book, and I lost Dennis, so he's up in the sky right now looking down at me and saying, "Come on, Vinny, you can do this." Right. And we lost him on October 16th. But, the name of that book is The Last Laugh, From Vision to Victory. And, vehemence and vitality and all these V's in between. And if you can't see yourself doing it, it's never going to happen. And part of that visualization process, I think people confuse visualization with dreaming. And I dreamt that I would be a Philadelphia Eagle when I was a kid, but I could never, then you'd say, okay, now I'm in this situation. That's when the visualization part comes in. And one of the things, aside from visualization, is this ability to be on the field and have this thing called situational awareness. And coach, there was something. It was a God-given gift that I had, that I could come off the line of scrimmage, and we'd look at this. Defense was a lot simpler then, but we would just have a triangle looking at you. Look at the corner, the safety, and the linebacker to that side, and that would determine the defense, whether it be zone, man to man, and whatever combinations of all them. And I was the one guy on the team. The reason I first made the team was because I would be able to come off that line of scrimmage and then understanding what the defense was, make the adjustment, and visualize myself catching the ball. So all that, you just have to see yourself being great. And that's part of the visualization process. But I'll tell you what, coming down that tunnel, at the tunnel for the first time at Veterans Stadium, and the fans and oh my God, I didn't even touch the ground.
Right?
Yeah. I like a rocket down the field, and I'm pointing up, and there's my dad and all my buddies that had season tickets with up in the nosebleeds, and oh man, you can't even imagine.
I can't even imagine what that feeling would be, Vince. I mean, there you were for 10 years, and I'm sure you weren't drinking beer in the stands, but you might have seen other people
no.
drinking beer. But I mean, that just had to be surreal, walking out of the tunnel and just seeing your family and friends up there. I mean, that is just such an amazing story. Like that gives us goosebumps, because as athletes on a very smaller scale back in our day, we couldn't even imagine. Could you imagine walking out on Arrowhead or Miami?
Well, like Vince said, I dreamt it, right?
Yeah,
like I dreamt it a lot growing up, but to be able to then be presented with an opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity or take the risk, right? I mean, we can open this can of worms up, and let's talk about taking risks. Let's talk about the situal awareness. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about sports, if we're talking about people's career choices, maybe go into that a little bit, Vince, about you taking the risk to even show up to, possibly be humiliated, get physically hurt, and then take advantage of the opportunity.
Well, I was humiliated enough when I was a kid, because I was bullied constantly. I wasn't real big. When I was 14 years old, that was about 4 feet 10 inches tall, 85 or 90 pounds, and all of a sudden, I shot up. Mm-hmm. So, the risk factor, and I say that a lot of times, when I talk about what does it take to get to be invincible and some of the things you have to overcome. And one of those things is you have so many doubters, it's to this, it's to that. And some of the twos are, well, you don't have the right resume because you didn't play college football. And the other two that I had, what's too risky? Well, that was one thing that never really entered my mind, because right here, I was a pole vaulter, for crying out loud. I was a kid that climbed at the top of the tree and would just go back and forth like this. I think that's one of the reasons my mom had a breakdown, and it's this crazy kid. And so fear was never a factor, the fear of getting hurt. The humiliation factor. The only way you can be humiliated if you allow yourself to be that and not be as strong as you can be, and you don't give it everything you have. And I figured I got nothing to lose, baby, because nobody knows this, but I'm on a leave of absence, and I'm going to go back and get my teaching job. So I'm going to go back from, if I'm making 21, back to being, as a coach and all that, making around 10. But that's okay. I've got a job and I love teaching. And listen, if I didn't make the Eagles, I would have just been retiring, probably, either as a school principal or whatever. But I'd be retired from education. So, you have to see yourself, but you got to take those risks and be prepared for it. And so for me, coming out for the Eagles, injury was never a factor. Not making the team wasn't a factor. But here's the big part, and the movie didn't really catch it real well, because where we had training camp was only 6 or 8 miles from where I grew up. So that's Widener College, And so every time I'm out on that practice field, I've got my students are all coming out now watching me perform. I've got the guys I played semi-pro ball with. They're up there with their coolers, drinking the beer. Come on, Vinny, come on up, And I've got the guys that I was playing at the semi-pro, like the rough touch league, and then all of a sudden it started to build. The crescendo built, and every time I catch a pass, the fans would erupt, whether it was just against air, 1-on-1, or against team. And I took that to my advantage, and every time I caught a pass, especially in 7-7, like in the movie, I'd run all the way down into the end zone, and the fans would go out of their minds. And then Vermeil would turn around, Coach Vermeil, what's going on? And there I am, jogging back with the ball in my hand. I always, every day you have to make an impact. You got to win today. You got to win today's practice, and that's the factor, and that's the risk factor I took.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
And I have a great story about the Orange Bowl too. You being a Dolphins fan, because that was one of the main reasons I made the team.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. You got the floor.
Well, you're a kid and you're going up in our neighborhood and it's Philly and you're watching the Orange Bowl, right? And you're seeing the Orange Bowl and you're seeing all these, you're seeing all these palm trees and stuff. And, my whole backyard's lined with it now, you sort of it's like, they're like weeds, but you're seeing that. Oh my God. So cool. So here it is. We're in our fourth preseason game. Harold Carmichael's our receiver, and it's a Friday night game. And the game's going to be going back to Philadelphia. And Coach Vermeil says, "Oh, Vinny," he says, "You ready?" I said, "Ready for what?" He says, "You're going number one tonight." He said, "We're going to sit Harold, let him take the night off." I said, "Are you ready?" I said, "Coach, I was born ready, baby. Let's go." And so all day long, I put myself in certain situations. And, that you mentioned, Bobby, the situational awareness aspect of things. And it's one of the things they say is really, really, really strong in my son as well. He has that same capacity. And, so here we are in that game. I wound up with 5 catches in the first half, a couple of knockdowns. A couple tackles, solo tackles, and I got on a couple scrambles, guys from the Dolphins. Now, the story started to get around the country. And I had a couple guys trying to take my head off, and I held my own with them. But the one play was the situational awareness thing. Is when the coach called in for a play, and he brought in a guy, and he goes, "Hey, Vinny," he says, "Can you go to the Z, which is a strong side receiver?" He says, "I don't know what to do in this play," and I went to the Z, and then I came around and I made a block, and the guy that I blocked, I decleated him. And coach said, Papale wasn't even supposed to be there. And so the poor guy that didn't know what he was doing got cut. But, it was because of those kinds of things. And it was that Miami game. The next day, coach says, "I'm going to show you a highlight film of a guy that probably doesn't even belong to be here in this camp. And he's probably going to make this football team." And then I'm looking up and I can't wait to see it. And there's me. And there are about 10 plays that coach and then everybody's looking over. I'm getting goosebumps telling you that story. Sure, and I said, "Jesus Christ, I can't wait." Pardon me. I can't wait to get on the phone and call my dad. And I called my dad at Westinghouse. "Dad, I think we're going to pull this off." So and it started with the Dolphins game, and when it all turned out great. So but you got to be able to see it. You got to be able to see it. Be willing to pay the price to have that dream and to create that, have that dream and a vision all come true.
Well, and the thing is, Vince, you had so many good points there, but it's a lot of the confidence that was instilled in you, from your parents, your coaches, and even your buddies as growing up to have that confidence in yourself. Because with so many young people, and heck, even with adults these days, we see it in our businesses, life happens. And, my wife says, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust the sails, right? So have to have
like that, yeah.
Right. You have to have that confidence in yourself to know that things aren't always going to go right. Have your faith that, there's a bigger plan for you. But man, when you get knocked down, you just can't stay knocked down because, so many people stay down and, they never bounce back in life. Right. So that right there is, your inner fire of never giving up and having all those mentors along the way as you're growing up, man, that just builded that moment for your situational awareness. So when your time came, you were ready to go. So one thing that I would like to know is, how was the story? Did Vermeil bring you into the office to let you know you made the team the first time? How did that whole thing pan out?
That's a great one. I love this. This is a fun story. And I just came back this last week. I was in Dallas for an autograph signing, and who's there? It was Rudy. Me and Rudy are the best of friends, right? And I met him. Oh, I kill him, man. Every time I see him, I'm not going to say what I say. I give it to him, right? I say, Rudy, and I give it to him when I'm up speaking, and I turn it into fun. But how did I find out I made the team? Well, remember when Rudy, and we'll go to Rudy. Remember when Rudy found out that he got accepted into Notre Dame, and he called his father, and his father was when my father worked at Westinghouse, his father worked in a plant, and everybody was going crazy in the background. So we call that, it's called a Rudy moment. So when I found out I made the team, now I don't even know I've made the team, but now we've broken training camp. We're at Veterans Stadium. I walk into the locker room for the first time, and where's the wide receivers' lockers, and all the way to the very, very end, and the very last locker before you go to the doors and take you to the bathrooms is my locker, his locker, and it's got Vince Papale on it, and it's in plastic, and it's spelled right, and there's a number 83 jersey in there, and I'm thinking, holy crap. I think I made the team, but I don't know. Nobody's told me yet. Coach didn't tell me. Nobody came out. No. So in the movie, they have that scene, where the coach wants to see it, but he forgot those magic words, bring the playbook, and you never said bring your playbook. But anyway, in the movie, I took the playbook in, and I thought I was going to get cut, and I pushed the book over to Coach, and then he pushed it back. You might want to hang on to this for a couple of months. You might need it. Well, in reality, the way I found it is the Turk, the guy to Turk, is the guy that Kirk cuts you. And so he comes, his name is Bob Davis, and he looks over at me, and I grabbed the playbook and the playbook was about as size as 15 phone books. And the playbook, here you go. And he just looked at me and he started laughing. And I said, well, what's so funny about getting my ass cut? There's no joy in this. And he said, no. Now he goes over and he points this with Coach wants to talk to you. Bring your playbook. So now, it's like, it's like, you ever watch these guys and the golfers, and they come in with this great hole, and they go back to them because the guy that can make this putt could be the guy that's going to tie you in the playoffs. I'm sort of in that mode. I can't celebrate yet. So we get out on the field. We're playing the Dallas Cowboys the next week. We're in right field. The stadium's set up for the Phillies because and now we're in late September. We're always September. And it's set up, and I'm looking up in the stands, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I think I'm going to be going to Dallas, but I don't know. Then all of a sudden, Coach Ramil comes over. He looks at me. He had this grin on his face, and I think, oh, here it comes. And he says, "Yo, Vinny," he said, "Congratulations, old man. You're a Philadelphia Eagle. Welcome to the team." And I said, "You've got to be kidding me!" I jumped up. I gave him a big. I started crying, and I said, "Coach, can I make a call?" He said, "What, are you going to have a press conference?" I said, "No." I said, "Can I call my dad?" So I ran over to the Phillies dugout, which is on first base line, and we're right field. And there was a payphone there. And I had the number, and I made a collect call to the shop steward at Westinghouse, and his name was Slim Kaufman. And it, collect call from Vince Papale, and then Slim knows, he knows me. Yes, I'll take the call. And he says, well, why? I said, hey, Slim, I said, tell Kingy. My dad's nickname was Kingy. I said, tell Kingy, his little boy's a Philadelphia Eagle. They used that line in the movie. And that's what it was. And you could hear the Westinghouse absolutely going crazy in the background. So we had a pretty good party for about 48 hours. Right. Down the Delco just lit up, and actually the city of Philadelphia lit up, and that's how I found out I made the team. But when the producers and when they showed, when I read, and this is the this by the way is the actual original manuscript. This is the script right here, and if you read the original script, you would see that it was that scene, and I said, well, that's not how I found out I made the team. Says, well, we can't do it because of plagiarism. It's a Rudy moment. And, so that was it. Yeah. So Warner Brothers had us, but we didn't have Invincible. So we did a horse trade, Disney being we, did a horse trade with Warner Brothers to get the name Invincible and made it that, which was pretty cool. It throws my name in it. So that's pretty wild. There it is right there.
So you're talking about, all things succeeding in Philly. So I've got two personal close friends that are Philly boys, all right? So shout out to Mark DeVito and shout out to Ed Ball. Number one, Ed said to say hi because you guys have a really close mutual friend. His name's David Van Dusen. I don't know.
Oh, my God. The Deuce?
Yeah.
Deuce.
So one of my really good friends Yeah, he knows David really well, so he wanted to drop that connection for
awesome.
You. And
cool.
Number 2, so DeLeo, he's my good buddies from Philly, and I texted him. I said, hey, we've got Vince on the show. You got anything you want to ask? And number 1, they both said he is an absolute legend, folklore hero. Everybody knows him. So number 1, like, how special to have your neighborhood, quote unquote, the city of Philadelphia, just think so highly of you. And number 2, DeLeo said, why didn't they get an Italian actor to play him?
Well, we didn't want to have Robert De Niro. He's really too.
No, that's funny, right?
That's funny. It's really cool. So Monday, this Monday, I don't know when this is going to air, but on the 1st, we're going to be heading up to Philadelphia, and then we're going to hit a couple of spots, and then an alumni day is August 12th, and I'm going to go. If my son isn't in the NFL, and he's got a few teams looking at him right now. I just got done a season of USFL Vinny. We've got alumni day, and I'm telling you, when I'm in that setting, let's just say when I walk into a bar, I don't buy too many beers.
Right.
But you know what the really cool is just as people when they find out, hey, I'm talking to this guy, and that first word out of the mouth is legend, and I'm thinking, wow, how cool is that? To be considered, and that's especially by NFL guys. And I'm going to be out there with 100 Hall of Famers next week. But what's really cool is the last laugh is after a picture that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame of Dennis and I laughing our butt off after a big hit we made against the Washington Redskins. So this legendary thing, it's cool. But it's and thanks to my Philly guys, and Dave Van Dusen, by the way, was my track teammate, and I grew up in really humble beginnings. David came from the other side of the tracks, and like I said, Dews, and we called him Dews. Dews taught us how to be cool because he was about as cool as the other side of the pillow, as our boy Scotty would tell you. So yeah, thanks guys, thanks for the great Philly memories.
Cool,
Hey, listen. I'm just a dad, man. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I've got I'm going to be 29 years married in a couple of weeks. I got 2 beautiful children that are very successful, and I'm just the luckiest guy in the world right now.
Well, and it sounds like you got some really cool things coming up here in a couple of weeks to see some of your buddies and, tell some stories and hang out, which would be amazing. So another thing that I was thinking about, Vince, is like, as you were going through the career and, you spent a few years with the Eagles, did you ever dream that a movie would actually be made of your life story? I mean, how did that whole thing come about? Like, did Disney approach you, or were you working like on a script or something? How did that unfold?
No, that's a great story. No, Disney didn't approach me. It's all thanks to Sylvester Stallone. Thank you, Sly. And because Rocky, and so Rocky's coming out right about the same time I was. And, I used to run through the streets of Philadelphia because of my track days to as part of my training. And so what happened is we got contacted by NFL Films in 2002. And I wasn't writing a book, nothing. At that point, Janet and I were married. Our kids were 9 and 6. And, we're going through life. And I was doing mortgages. And Janet was doing real estate, which she's doing now. And we got approached by NFL Films, and they said, hey, Monday Night Football's going to do a feature on Rocky because it's the 21st anniversary of Rocky, and you're the real-life Rocky. So we want to tie it in with you. And so Warner Brothers gave NFL Films the right to use stills and some other things, and they did this feature. Monday Night Football was distant replay. And I think Jerry Rice was the person they used from the 49ers. The Eagles were playing the 49ers, and I was the Eagle guy. And here it's Stuart Scott and Ron Jaworski, my boy, Jaws, my quarterback. They're the guys that are the pregame. So, and, Stewart's just busting Jaws. Yeah, your buddy Papale, hey, Vinny, and all that stuff. So they showed it. They showed the feature. I found out they never showed it to me. NFL Films would show it to me. I found out I was going to get it at a certain time at a certain block. So I had about 80, 90 people at our house, including all the networks in Philadelphia, just invited them over. and say, hey, something big's brewing. And they showed the feature, and you can see it. It's on YouTube. It's out there. You go Vince Papale YouTube, Monday Night Football, and you'll see that feature. Well, guess what? And it was, did a great comparison with Rocky. And the next day, Hollywood came calling. And then
nope.
the guy, just like that. Yeah, Hollywood. We got calls from maybe 6 or 7 studios and/or producers. Wow. But there's this one guy, Ken Mock. He decided to take the ultimate risk. He gets Brad Gann, and Brad Gann comes up with this beautiful manuscript. So here's what was really cool. So now it's 2004, and we decide these are going to be the guys. I sign all the contracts. I give the anecdotal rights. I mean, that's really important because I could write a movie on you just by Googling you up. And you really couldn't do much about it, but to get the anecdotal rights, you had to do it. So Brad Gann, writes this thing. And now here's what they do is, Darren, they give a book to you and they tell you to take that book to Columbia. And Bobby, you're going to take that book over to New Line or wherever it is, whatever it might be, one of the big theaters out there. But the guys that did Miracle and Rookie, Mark Ciardi and Gordon Gray, and that did Secretariat and did, Miracle, it did all that. They're the ones that take this into Disney. And Disney, right on the spot, October 14th, they liked it and they bought it. And I got the call from Disney and they told me, you're our guy, and they're going to do the movie. So on the 15th, in 2005, they greenlit it, which means that the budget was approved. It was, I think, around 35, 40 million. And then I had no idea it was going to play me. I thought Hugh Jackman would be the perfect me, or Keanu Reeves. I really like Keanu Reeves because of that the football movie he had done, The Replacements. But he had already burned himself out as a football character, so he can't do that. And next thing you know, Mark Wahlberg becomes me. And I really didn't know much about Mark until my buddy said it's Marky Mark from the Funky Punch, And one thing you don't call Mark Marky. That's for darn sure. And and he and I are like this, and
that's
our
awesome.
family's like this. And with just the shooting of the movie, we're always together, and we're still going back and forth either with texts or whatever it might be. And it's just like that's how it got started, and then it ran #1 in the box office for 2 weeks. So. When I talk about it, I just said, Invincible is your story. It's all about that dream. All about that dream.
It grossed in the movie. Let's talk about the movie for a minute. So I think it grossed almost $60 million domestically. That's no slouch of a movie. That's incredible. I mean, I remember seeing it in the theaters when it came out. Super, motivating. Yeah. What a special moment. But with Mark Wahlberg, so you obviously did not get a choice of who got to play you. You didn't have any anecdotal say on who was going to play?
No, I really didn't. They didn't ask me, and I didn't offer. I just was messing around with guys. When I do my presentation, I throw up Danny DeVito's picture. I said, because I'll put Hugh Jackman and I'll put Bradley Cooper because he's a Philly guy. And then I say, but here's all my people in Philadelphia wanted this guy, and then I put up Danny DeVito's picture, and then and afterwards I show Mark in full regalia, all the way back when he was doing the tighty whitey thing to in uniform, being me. And it's really a great play. But I had no say absolutely whatsoever. But I'll tell you what, I had a lot of input because I worked with Mark for 2 weeks prior to the shooting the movie. If we were going right back now to 2005 when we were shooting the movie, we would be at Franklin Field or at Central High School right by LaSalle University. Filming the training camp and or the pro football scenes. And it was hot. It was, man, I'm going to tell you what, brutally hot. And, but, got it done what had to be done. I felt so bad in that one scene where I say, come on, Eagles, it's Mark right in the beginning of the movie. And you see the snow coming. Well, guess what? It was 95 degrees and they were shooting this they were shooting this in the stands with fake snow. And he's got a winter coat on, and everybody around him are dying. It was wild, how they do movies. It's really cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, I bet a lot of people have movies made about them, right? Obviously, we've seen a lot of stories, but the bond between actor and the person they're portraying, a lot of times, I'm sure it's a fleeting relationship. It goes away after the movie comes out. And you've mentioned today that you guys are still really tight. Your families are close. So maybe talk a little bit about how that relationship, blossomed and then now is still fruitful and is adding value to your life?
Well, I think it's blossomed because of the respect we had for each other and the humble background that Mark had. And I think the relationship that he had with my wife, Janet, and, they became really good friends. And also the relationship that he had with our children. He had this Honda scooter that he tricked out, and he had the whole thing tricked out like with the Eagles wings on it, number 83 and the whole thing. And he always saw Mark with my two kids on the back of it. And in between every scene, it would be Mark and my kids together. He'd have them in the trailer every night after we were shooting. It'd be Mark and me out going through the store every other night, where I'd be out with the producers. Like for 13 weeks, it was just nonstop, everything going, and everything was all about the movies. And afterwards, and there was just something, that closeness and that bond. I don't know how it developed, but we stayed on top of it. Now I'll tell you, the one thing is that my thing is that I get asked so many times, oh, hey, can you ask Mark to do this? Can you ask Mark to do that? And the only time I've ever asked Mark to do anything is to do something for the military and the disabled, and for my buddy who's a Gold Star father. And he was right there, he was right there for me. Other than that, I don't ask anything of him. He doesn't ask anything of me. Just for example, he represents Hy-Vee, and they had that big NASCAR race this weekend. Well, I get the guy who's the head of Indy Racing. I know pretty well because his number 83 car was the car in NASCAR. So he said, hey, guess who's going to be out here in Iowa? And I said, who's that? Mark. And that's why I sent Mark all these pictures of me in front of a Hy-Vee car, and me and Vinny with this guy. And in about 5 seconds, he's right back, saying, yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, it's just that kind of a deal, and it's pretty special, and it's something I'll cherish at all times. But he trained really hard. He busted his ass, man. Right before 4th of July in 2005, we had 2 weeks training period with all the football players, and all the players in the movie were Arena Football League players, active. I mean, and so the hitting that you saw there was true and intense. Yeah. And then, Mark and I were working together and, running routes and showing him how this. I put him through all the receiver drills that we would go through. And he took almost all the stunts except for just a few. But, man, he got busted up. There's another great interview on YouTube of me interviewing Mark on set, so. And you want to see how tough he was, and him telling the story about how he wanted to prove to everybody else that he could do it. He didn't just want to go out there and pose. He wanted to be part of the team and be accepted by these football players that he was competing with out there in the field. So, and he did a damn good job.
Weren't you guys doing some training with Greg Jennings, like some route running training? And
Yep. Yeah, it was. Who was your H-back at Miami?
Say again?
Well, who was the H-back in Miami? The guy was a Philly guy. Remember they had the H-back back then in the day?
Oh, we're talking about when the movie
with Miami, the Dolphins.
When you guys were filming?
No. Who was your H-back back in the day when you won the Super Bowl? They called him the H-back.
Jim Kick?
Jim Kick, not Jim Kick. No, no, it wasn't Kick. But he was a target. He was a tight end as well. His name is escaping me. I took too many hits without a helmet, but he's a Philly guy, very, very important in the production and the movie. And we had to have an intermediary. I couldn't deal direct to Mark. It's just the way things are set up with unions and whatever. SAG and after whatever.
Well, it always helps to remain close with Mark, Wahlberg, because if he, as a father, if he's hanging out with your kids for 13 weeks or whatever it was, and he's taking them around on the scooter, man, as a dad, that just brings you, really close with someone and like, hey, man, this guy is treating my kids like gold. Like, this guy has to have a big heart. So I'm sure that went a long way as a dad.
Oh, I'm just so much respect. And it didn't go unnoticed by everybody there. And what was really cool was when we would do the football scenes, Mark's a lefty and my son Vinny's a lefty. And they would just be having a catch the whole time. And, Vinny would be running bombs and Mark would, he just constantly, when we were doing the football scenes, Mark Wahlberg never, ever, ever went to the trailer and said, let me take a break. He was always out there doing something. And it was really cool. It was so much fun when we did the mud scenes, they were doing the mud scenes late at night, and Vinny was playing little league football, and I was coaching. So I come right from practice, and Vinny's he's in all white, right? It's all his white uniform, and they'd just done a scene in the movie. And Mark's all muddy, and then he started chasing Vinny around in the mud, and Vinny Mark couldn't get a hold of him. It was all over the place. Then finally he got him, and then and I have this great picture of Mark and Vinny walking out. I mean, just one of the greatest memories you could possibly have. He's a beautiful man, and he's very devout, and he just he's out to help people. I love everything he stands for.
That's fantastic.
Very good, very good. So your transition from football, I'm assuming there was a little bit of time before you became a motivational speaker and a person who really took it on their shoulders as I have a story to tell that I think can help people and serve people and help them do better down the road. So maybe speak a little bit to what that transition was like and how you became proficient, because I think there's a lesson for everybody when making a transition on the amount of research, the dedication, the practice that it takes, whether it's football or motivational speaking or doing mortgages like we do and like you used to do. So maybe speak a little bit about that transition in life and the preparation it took.
Okay, I did some really funky mortgages. I did the non-Fannie Mae stuff, the mixed-use properties, and I did it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's the fun stuff.
It was a lot of fun. But, from that aspect of things, what was the question again now? I'll get on to that.
Well, making the transition from football to being a motivational speaker and what that process was for you and how you became so great at it.
Well, it's when I made the team, I think I did every little league football, baseball, every Sunday. You'd be up there on the stage and you look out and you'd see the 50 tables. And on each table would be 20 empty bottles of Bud. It's, oh my God. And that's how it all started. And then it tapered off a little bit, after a while, and it was cool. And I never thought anything of it. And now, when I did TV and radio, before I got into the mortgage thing. And then it just gets to the point where, the movie comes out and this guy grabs me and he's got a speakers bureau, Kerr speakers in Virginia. And he said, Vinny, I need to talk to you. And he said, this is what's going to happen to you. He says, you got to do this, that, and the other thing. And he said, because you're going to be offered astronomical fees to go out and speak because everybody's going to want to know the story. So he helped me draft a little bit about how I should do it. I set an outline up, and I just basically did it as a football game with 4 quarters, and then finally you end strong with the 2-minute drill, and then you just give it at the end, So, and then I break it up with videos and stuff like that. But I was always that guy for the first couple of years after the movie came out. I would just be a talking head up there for about 35 or 40 minutes, and to me, I didn't like it. I didn't feel comfortable doing that. Right. To be up there talking about yourself, whatever it might be. And I went out to do this one event for my buddy. And he went in, and his introduction to me was PowerPoint, and he showed all these pictures of me. And I said, "What? Here was a school teacher, and I used to use the projector, that you would have a project behind you, and I was one of the first ever to use that. And I was always using AV back in the 70s. And I said, why don't I put more AV into it? And I started doing it, and then it just changed the game. So I got the videos that come in, the stuff, the interviews, whatever it might be with Mark, and everything leads to something. And that was the big transition. Next thing you know, I decided not to do an exclusive with any agencies. And I have maybe 5 or 6 or 7 contact me, and and I'm now starting to get busy again. And hopefully we're not going to have another pandemic, but to knock us out. But I'm starting to get some. I'm starting. Where I'm going on that one. So I'm starting to. I'm starting to get busy again. And I just came back from Dallas, just came back from St. Louis. I'm going to be heading out. I'm speaking to the FBI, and I'm speaking to GMs from golf courses in a couple of weeks. And I mean, it's crazy fun, but it's all structured now. And what I do is, sometimes I'll be there. I'll go to church, and this one coach is a pastor, and and I'm there just writing notes. I'm right next to Doug Peterson, writing notes. And if I hear a good quote or something like that, I constantly change it up and adapt it to whomever I'm speaking to. And that's how I go. But, I know we were talking about leadership and overcoming obstacles. What's it take to be invincible as an individual? And then Janet, my wife Janet, was a world-class gymnast and coach and taught all over the world. We have a slide that ends it with, what does it take to be an invincible team? And I use off that, one of my metaphors I use is SEAL Team 6. You talk about invincible teams. Well, I spoke to SEAL Team 6. You want to talk about intimidating? Man, I opened up with my best stuff. I was out with them the night before until about 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I'm speaking to them about 9 and I didn't even recognize them. They were all like ramrod straight. They had shirt ties on and all this. And I'm giving them my good stuff, about last night and everything. And they're just sitting there like this. Not a muscle is moving and just stoic. And you know what it was? It was the indoctrination of, how a guy hits his first home run in the majors and he gets into the locker room, or he gets in the dugout and everybody's, so finally they got him. But, with teamwork, Janet and I come and we end it with, what's it take to be an invincible team? And one of the things is developing relationships, but more importantly, it's fundamentals. We've got to get back to the fundamentals. And right now, we're in the midst of a big storm. And how do we fight through it? The fundamentals of making second effort a part of your personality, things you can control. And being nice to people. What's wrong with being nice to people, treating everybody as equals? That's how we started this whole conversation. And, that's basically how, and then, I got the video of the last play and I tie that into what it takes to have that situational awareness in life, analyze, adapt, and achieve. And I use the final hit as, because of the audible that's called. Life is an audible. Jimmy Murray, the guy that gave me that first contract, wrote a book, Life is an Audible. I use that. Win the day. When Vinny played at the University of Delaware. And, the guy that was in charge of the PR for them, he said, Vince, you got to win the day. And then you look at it right now, with COVID and all the changes going on in life and whatever's happening, the storm that we have is just get through today. And then if you get through tomorrow, it just makes it a better place to be in right now. So, life is good. And, I treat every speech I give as if it's my Super Bowl and I'm the quarterback. I can't throw an interception. I can't have a fumble. And I don't care whether they're going to pay me X or X minus, even if it's pro bono, I'm going to give it that same effort, because they demand and they want the best. So and anybody, if you want, go to my website, vincepapale.com, and it says form. You can always get a hold of me. But I'm not out selling it. I'm pretty busy right now. It's all good.
Well, no, Vince, and the thing is, because we want to be respectful of your time, we want you, and we'll talk about the website here in a little bit, because I want you to talk a little bit about how people can get the book. But another thing that I know you have a passion about. So in 2001, you got diagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. So tell us about that. Tell us about that journey. And I know that you want to help encourage folks to go and get checked out, just to make sure there's preventable. A lot of people don't want to go to the doctor. So tell us a little bit about what fuels your passion on that end.
Well, I was very reticent about doing something like that because I had no symptoms or anything else like that. And, now I'm due for a checkup. So when I get back from doing all the traveling I'm going to be doing in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to be getting whatever I need to get done. But it was because Janet, my wife, decided that she says, you need to get a colonoscopy. I couldn't even say it, let alone spell it, And I says, oh, no, I got to do the prep. And, I mess around with guys. I said, come on, you might like it. Just take the prep for crying out. Just do the prep. And
my dad's I say because it tickles.
So, and when what they found, they found a cancerous polyp in there. And it wasn't, and they gave me a barium enema. That was embarrassing. And, but they found the polyp and I had an advocate and his Dr. Infantolino, Tony Infantolino. And he said, I'm going to send this polyp out to all these pathologists. And all 7 pathologists said that it was totally enclosed and totally encapsulated. So what they did is they just took 18 inches of my colon through my navel laparoscopically. And like a hose, you go to Ace Hardware and you get one of those things. You put the hose back together. So the last time I had a colonoscopy, they couldn't even see where they did that was about 5 years ago.
Wow,
they couldn't even see it. So I became a spokesperson for colorectal cancer awareness, and still do that, and do whatever I can, and have somebody come up and hug you and cry and say you saved my life because we saw your ad, because I was doing that for 3 years straight, and all around the greater Delaware Valley area, and somebody cried and said you saved my life or you saved my parents' life, because of that. So you just got to stay on top of things, and my Janet, being the coach she is, won't let me get away with it. So I'll be heading in.
It's a good one. Yeah. Clearly she wants to keep you around for a while.
Well, I guess, yeah. So I want to stay around for a while. I got my baby Gabriella at 28 now, and she worked with the Sixers. She worked in the pro game, and she did entertainment and live entertainment and everything for the Sixers. And now she's real estate. But we have a group called the Papale Group, so they do real estate in 3 states. So. It's pretty cool.
That's
so
awesome.
We're all together as a family, and Vinny's chasing his dream to get in the NFL.
That's amazing.
Very good. Well, I think, wrapping up here, I think you accomplishing beating cancer just is another metaphor for everything of overcoming adversity that you did your entire life, personally, professionally, your family. You've got a really tight-knit group. You've got the Mount Rushmore that helped you get there. I think we've got a lot of great themes today. So mentors, thank you. Yeah, about mentors and leadership, and never, ever, ever giving up, and visualizing success, and making sure that you're always putting your nose to the grindstone, because we have this thing, Vince, it's TNT. It takes no talent. It takes no talent to always be good to people. It takes no talent to be nice. It takes no talent to just outwork people, to make sure that you're always giving your best. And thank you so much for kind of summarizing all of those themes up today. This has been a really great experience.
Yeah. And Vince, before we wrap it up here, so tell people once again, where do they go to get a copy of the book for you?
Well, they can go to www.vincepapale, or lowercase.com, and or vincepapale.com, and you can get it. You can go there, and we have our store. And if anybody would like me to, or they might have a question or something like that, just go to how to contact Vince, and it's a very interactive form. You put in your information, and if if I'm not working through an agency, we do direct bookings, so we're able to do that. But it's vincepapale.com, and the book and T-shirts and Invincible kind of stuff is there. But I'm not out to sell anything. I'm just really happy to do what I can. And, if anybody says, what's your epitaph, was, he was kind to everybody and he made a difference. I mean, that's how I want to be remembered. And he was a great husband and a great dad. To me, that's the perfect trifecta. And that's the way I live.
That's fantastic. Well, Vince, thank you so much. You dropped several gold nuggets all over the place over the last hour. And what a story, man. Even a better person. So thank you for spending the time with us.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Before you go, Pats or Geno's?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, both. All right. Yeah, you have to experience both. They're right next to each other. It's great. It's a fantastic atmosphere. It is safe. Nobody's going to mess around with you in South Philly. And so just go to both of them. You can't beat it. Make sure you have a good appetite, though. And make sure how it's cheese with or cheese without. Make sure you know what to say when you get in line. Study it. It's really important.
As we tail out here, I've got a quote, one of your quotes, and I think it's really important for listeners to hear this quote. Happy are those who dream dreams and are willing to pay the price to make their dreams come true.
That came from George Corner when everybody was ragging me about trying out at the age of 30. I said, what do you think? He said, here it is. And he gave me that quote. The key is, are you willing to pay the price? That's the key right there.
That's it.
It's a great way to wrap it up. Guys, this is the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with Bobby and Darren. Of course, Vince Papale, Invincible, the movie. Check it out on Disney Plus right now. Go to vincepapale.com. He's a great guy, hell of a leader, great story. Vince, thanks so much. Hang on the line as we wrap up the recording, and we'll say goodbye to you.
You're welcome.
Thanks again, Vince.
Okay, you're welcome.
Guys.
Thanks. It's great, guys.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Darren and Bobby thank you from the bottom of their hearts.
They hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave them a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you're listening. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in our community.
Also, feel free to let DC and BK know which business or community leaders you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or on social media. See you next time for a new episode. And remember, always be cool.
This podcast is powered by Summit Lending, NMLS number 1850081, Equal Housing Lender.